Welcome to On the Square with Councilmember Kurt Johnson. Today we're going to be interviewing two women that were elected to the City Council, and they're two women of color. Two women that I respect within our community, and I'm sure you're going to get an opportunity to learn a lot about them today. So let's get started. Welcome, Councilmember Jacqueline Heading.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here on your show. I love your backdrop, and I'm excited to be here today to chat a bit.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, because as a council member, we know there's a lot we have to do.
You're right.
And to take time out today on a rainy day of all days. So the first question, give us a little bit background about yourself. Where you're from, how was your background as for being reared by your parents, and how did you end up in Grand Prairie, Texas?
Okay, these are good questions that I haven't been asked before in my city council capacity. So I'm from Chicago, and I love Grand Prairie because Chicago had a lot of crime issues. You know, growing up, I went to public school in Chicago. I remember one time on lunch, I put my sneakers next to me on the lunch table. I turned my head. Somebody snatched the sneakers and ran off. So I don't have that problem in Grand Prairie. It's a lovely community, but I've lived a lot of places. I've seen cities on the northwest, southwest, east, or west coast, as well as Midwest and international. So all of that to say, I've traveled quite a bit. I love travel. I've spent time in India, China, Europe, and just love to explore. I think I got that passion growing up early. In middle school, I studied abroad and lived with a family in France in 8th grade. So I got the travel bug early, and went to college, went to law school, started out in my work career, and then when I got married, my husband was from this area. So that's kind of how I circled around the Texas. He started off in elementary school in Grand Prairie and then moved to Irving. So he lived here, his grandfather lived here and has a church here. So when we got married, I came here. And we are co-pastors, my husband and I, at a church in the Dallas area. So we planted our roots here. It's a long way from Chicago, but I feel safe here. I don't have to look for anyone stealing my sneakers anymore. So it's been a great ride here in Grand Prairie since 2015.
That's wonderful to hear. It's interesting to hear about your background as far as traveling. It almost sounds like it was a military background. Any military background with your family, or it's just that you had that passion to travel across the globe?
You know, no military background. In fact, a lot of people in my family hadn't had those opportunities to do a lot of that international travel. So for me, education was the way to have those opportunities abroad. Like I said, I studied abroad and did a homestay, they call it, where you stay with a family in another country. That was presented to me in 8th grade, and it was just through the school. So thereafter, in college, there were other study abroad programs, and I signed up for those, where I also lived with families, which was a really fantastic experience. I've lived with a family for 3 months in France and another family for almost 4 months in India. So I think that when you live with people, you really get to know their culture, and I think that is part of what makes me a good council person, to be able to relate to so many different people, different walks of life. Because when you have to see what is it that makes us similar, when they do things totally different from what you're used to, you know, you really gain a skill set there that, you know, makes it easy to connect with people.
Right, and that's something I've enjoyed, being in the military, traveling across the globe. I love telling folks I've been through the Panama Canal, through the Suez Canal. I've traveled around the world on board a naval vessel, but I got to see things, and I embrace diversity because I strongly believe in that, because we have our different strengths and weaknesses. If you embrace diversity to bring things to the table, you're always going to get a better product. I met your husband, Thomas, when I was initially campaigning. That's how I got to know you, through your husband, Thomas. And I recall when I met Thomas, he was studying for the bar exam. And we actually got into a debate, you know the story, and it was a good debate, and something that I definitely shared with a lot of folks during that time when I was running is that I'm going to speak my truths, whether I get your vote or not, but we have to speak truths around here. And we have to be true to ourselves and to the voters who are voting us in to let them know what's actually going on. So I think I've held that position since I've been on the council, speaking the truth with the changes that we are making. Speaking of the council, what committees are you on?
I'm on the Public Safety Committee, Health and Public Safety, which is great. That deals with our police officers, that deals with health issues, obviously. We deal with issues regarding planning for disasters, and Grand Prairie does have a plan for if there's a disaster. One thing I've learned already in my year in tenure is that they really have a plan for everything, which is really great. I think it can make our citizens feel comfortable that there is some kind of plan set up for almost every scenario, and if there isn't one, they'll come up with one, on the spot. So it's a great team that we're working with on that committee. And then my other committee is the Economic Development Committee, which I love that committee because I am passionate about economic development, small businesses, as well as not just small businesses, but really bringing unique businesses to our community, whether that's shopping or restaurants, because I think that's the type of thing that's going to be of value to our citizens. But not only our citizens, that's going to bring people in from surrounding cities in the Metroplex. That's going to bring people in when they come from out of state. Maybe they'll hear about all the great things in Grand Prairie. So the Economic Development Committee is working on a lot of that and trying to figure out what we can do to bring more businesses here.
Okay. Is there any way, if someone had an idea what the city should have anyone in the community reached out to you to say, hey, Councilman Heading, I have a great idea, wanted the council consider this? Has anyone reached out to you?
I've been surprised, but I shouldn't have been surprised. People contact you with their problems first. They've got problems and they need that addressed, which makes sense. But I always tell people, please contact me with your ideas. We want to hear your ideas. People have great ideas that they may chat about over dinner with their family, with a friend, but it doesn't necessarily get to council members. So,
right.
We have to put ourselves out there. We're not guaranteeing everything is going to happen in a snap, but just go ahead and reach out. Send an email. You got an idea for some kind of event, you saw a restaurant in another part of the state that would be great here. We want to hear about it. So I'm not really getting as many of those emails, but I want those. So please send those emails of your great ideas.
Sounds wonderful. Let's talk about what had you decide to run for council. Listen to your background, having the diverse background and understanding different cultures. You bring a lot to the table with that. So did that have any influence on you as why you would like to join the council?
I would say it did. Initially, I served on the library board, which is a great board. Our library has great services, of course, but it is narrow in the capacity of the change I could affect with some of the ideas I had. So I thought, let me just step out, And the thing is, I didn't necessarily come into putting my name on the ballot as something that was a sure thing. I said, but if I can just talk to the people, I think I can gain their trust and be an advocate. And I think being an advocate is about being able to represent all walks of life and different people. So that, to me, I felt confident that I could do it. But I didn't come in, I didn't put my name on the ballot with any assumptions. It was a tough run. I did a lot of walking, a lot of meeting people, a lot of tough questions, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, we had discussions afterwards in regards to you coming on the council, and we both shared the same experience campaigning where there's hardly anyone within the city coming out to vote. I've always said less than 10% of the registered voters is telling another 90% what's going to happen in the city. And then when that 90% wakes up, they start asking questions. Why is this? My first response is always, did you vote in the last election? Because a lot of the voters today still focus on the presidential election more so than the local elections. And I jokingly tell them, well, if the cat is stuck in the tree, who are you going to call? You're going to call someone locally. You need your trash picked up. Who are you going to call? Someone locally. And those are the type of calls and emails I get. And we both agree working off those emails, it's a good tracking mechanism to ensure that we don't lose track of what's going on, because the phone calls I've received, they've been numerous, and they've been thankful for what we have done within the city. So if there's anything you'd like to talk about and that the citizens know, who is Councilmember Jacqueline Heading?
Yes. Well, who is Councilmember Jacqueline Heading? That's a big question. But I think people will find that I have a broad set of interests that I bring to the city. Arts, of course. I'm a painter. I'm a decorator. Also have a legal background with negotiation. And I also love small businesses. So I've been working with our Entrepreneur U, excuse me, I couldn't remember the name, the Entrepreneur U program, and that's of a passion for me. So really, I like a lot of different things, and I think that broad interest would be, I think they call it a Renaissance woman. That's what they call it. Someone who has skill sets in a lot of different things. That's how I would define myself, and I think that people will find when they start sending those ideas that I'll have creative solutions and things I can add to their idea from my different walks of life and background, that we can come together and do something great for the citizens.
Most folks might look at you and say she's not that tough, she's a pushover, but I'm here to let the people know she's no pushover. Most recently, we had to vote on an apartment complex, and you recommended to table it, and we were like, what's she doing that for? But when the project came back, it was even better, fewer apartments. It was a win-win for the city at that point. So I appreciate you sticking to your guns and standing by what you believe in, and the things that you can do, because we were a little taken back. She's going to table this. We just wanted to vote on it and move forward. But she's really representing District 2 very well, and I appreciate your time to come out to the show today. If there's any parting words you'd like to say to the viewers.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. My negotiation skills are always in action, and that's for the people, you know. They want to put in housing that looks subpar. I'm pushing them to do more. They want to, you know, put in apartments. With that case, they wanted to put in over 300 apartments. In the end, we got it down to 215, 220 or something. They didn't have to do that. But the developer in that case and in other cases have come back and said, Jacqueline's a tough negotiator. We need that. So I'm doing that for you guys. You know, I like to keep it pleasant, keep it cordial. But when it's time to negotiate, we got to talk business. And I think that's going to serve the people well. But thank you for the opportunity to share about that. I had forgotten about that.
Oh, I hadn't. So it's like, I definitely recognize your negotiating skills, because you worked that deal and other ones very well for the city, and I appreciate that. With that being said, thank you for coming to the show, and I look forward to our relationship, building our relationship together. And when we return back, we'll bring the new elected council member, Bessie Adams.
The City of Grand Prairie offers Alert GP, a high-speed communication service for emergency notifications. Receive alerts from the Grand Prairie Emergency Management Team by going to the city's website and following the sign-up instructions. Alert GP can notify a lot of people in a short time. It targets the entire city or specific areas where critical community alerts are necessary. If we can't reach you, we can't alert you. Visit gptx.org/alertgp and sign up today.
Welcome back to On the Square with Councilmember Kurt Johnson. Our second guest today is the newly elected councilmember, Bessie Adams. Bessie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up at, so we get to know who is Councilmember Bessie Adams.
Okay, well, I started off in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's where I was born, but I was raised in Kosciuszko, Mississippi by my grandparents. And so from there, moved to Atlanta for a couple of years and got married, and my husband's job relocated us to Grand Prairie.
Okay. You have any children?
I do. I have 3 wonderful children, all graduates of South Grand Prairie High. 2 daughters. One is an educator. Now she's a special ed advisor or advocate. I can't remember exactly. And then my youngest daughter just graduated from Texas State, and she's an educator en route to being a dance physical therapist. And the middle child is my son. He's a police officer
He's a police officer with
at Willow Park,
Willow Park.
which is a little west of Fort Worth, going toward Weatherford.
Okay, okay. Let us know what got you involved in local politics within the city of Grand Prairie.
Well, I've always been a servant leader, from being a Girl Scout leader to a couple of years ago, several years ago now, serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals, being involved with a social group, Sisters of Sarai. That's a women's group that does nothing but community service to now. I did have an opportunity to be a candidate with Grand Prairie ISD. To become a trustee there. And so the next stop was here, City Council.
So your current employers with who? And what did you do there?
I work with DeSoto ISD. I'm the controller / interim CFO. And so I got there in September of last year. But prior to that, I have like 26 years background in school business finance, working with charter schools as well as ISDs as large as Dallas.
Wow, that's impressive. So you have an auditing, accounting, finance background.
Absolutely. I started as a grant accountant, actually with the University of Southwest, UTS. I forgot the name of it. Oh my goodness! So we're gonna.
I can't help you there.
but started at at a college as a grant accountant. Then from there, I became a grant accountant at Dallas ISD, and then from there, I had an opportunity to be director of financial operations, and then senior director of accounting, and now controller.
So that's pretty much like public service, public accounting for tax dollars and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I have those decades of being nothing but responsible for taxpayer dollars. And I always say from the local, state, and federal levels. You know, local, of course, is our state, our tax dollars, our property taxes. Then, of course, the state allotment. And then if you're applying for federal grant or any type of federal assistance, I'm responsible for those dollars as well.
Speaking of tax dollars, most folks look at the council that we need to lower taxes. But you have a background on that, and I understand the numbers as well. Which entity do we pay the most into for our tax dollars?
Schools. We pay a lot we fund our school districts. When you look at, it's a balance. As a property owner, you think, I don't want to pay this much in taxes. These taxes are getting ridiculous. But when you look at it from the other side, this is what we're funding. We're funding education. We're funding safety. And so those are the things that make it worthwhile. Of course, the homestead exemptions and the other tax exemptions are important to property owners. But when you think about the good that your taxes are doing and providing, it's a different perspective.
Yeah, some people believe because they don't have any kids in the school system, they shouldn't have to pay any school taxes. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think you should, because it's a community, right? It's a community, and that's your contribution. Before that family had children, somebody was paying. When those children are grown, somebody will continue to pay. And when you look at Grand Prairie ISD being one, I just noticed is most school districts are the largest employer of the city. And just finishing orientation, I discovered that Lockheed Martin as well as GPISD are about equal. But when you look at what the school district provide, not only as an education to our youth, but a livelihood for employees, for our constituents and the citizens of the city.
So you're saying in Grand Prairie we have missiles and kids.
Isn't that a mix? Well, but think about it. It's a good mix because you have education, so that is our investment to our youth, and then you have our defense. And so both of those are pretty high priorities because you want to feel safe and you want our future, safe.
I found out you're speaking to your husband a few days ago. He said he works for Lockheed.
He does.
And my youngest daughter works for Lockheed.
Oh, I didn't know
here
that.
in Grand Prairie on the missile side.
Okay.
And she's worked on some top secret stuff. And when she was able to release that, she's shown us the articles that was written about the weaponry that she worked on, and I was really impressed with my daughter. So
Yeah, I can't give all the details, especially the technical aspects of my husband's job, but I do know he's working on the F-35. So he's in the Fort Worth
Yes.
location. And at one point, he was working on the weapons bay. And he was telling me all the technical advances that are going on where you can guide missiles. The pilot could actually
Yeah.
guide missiles with their eyes.
Yes.
And I won't even say, but another country tried to get that information. And so
Yeah.
it's just interesting to see how those fighters now really look like, I don't know, like something out of a sci-fi
Right. Right.
movie. But it's really impressive, and it makes you feel safe, in a country that really does take advantage of the technology that's being developed, as well as understanding that this is the country that we want to protect.
And we always said in the military, hearing the planes fly over, we call it the sound of freedom. So I'm always impressed to see the technology changes. I try to keep up with that, even with the new ships. The new ships that's come out, like, wow, I would love the opportunity just to serve on that ship to see what it was like. So let's pivot to your campaign. First time running for city council at large. That's a huge task within itself. What would you like to share with us about that?
That Grand Prairie is long, very long and very big. Because I chose to run at large, I wanted to make sure I saw every facet of the city, every inch of the city. And so it was really interesting to me just to see some little nooks and crannies that I wasn't familiar with. And I was a realtor for 10 years, so I just thought I knew Grand Prairie. But just to see how we have grown and the route, I guess the direction that we've grown in, and being able to now say we're a part of 3 counties. When I moved here, I lived on the Tarrant County side of Grand Prairie. So I knew about Tarrant County and Dallas County. But to know that now we're, it's going as southly as Ellis County is just amazing. And so being able to see the different facets, to see the different people, to talk to the different people, it was a lofty task, but at the same time, it gave me a really good perspective of Grand Prairie as a whole.
Okay. As a at-large member, where do you see yourself supporting the single-member districts? Because you're going to get a lot of phone calls and emails. And how do you see yourself working with the single-member district council members?
Well, that's exactly what I need to do. I need to work with the single-member districts because they have the true heart of their constituents. And so looking at it, I have some overarching, ideas, but as far as knowing what's best for that community, I have to lend myself to that member district representation.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like for the audience to know about you that you hadn't shared so far?
Well, like my fellow councilwoman, I love travel. I really love travel. My goal is to cover all 7 continents. I have 4 already covered. Of course, North America, South America, Europe, and Africa. And next month, I will knock off 2 more continents. I'm going to be in Indonesia as well as Australia. And I definitely have my eyes set on Antarctica. When I went to South America, I actually flew into Buenos Aires and went down through the Patagonian area to Ushuaia, which is the tippy tip of South America, and actually visited I think they call it the last post office in the world. And I thought I can kind of look over there and see, Antarctica, but I was close, but not quite close enough. But that is my plan. I love, travel. I think it broadens your perspective of people. It opens your mind to different cultures and different opportunities that different people bring their perspective and send it through their lens. And so it's just amazing to travel and first of all see God's beautiful world,
right,
and then to see God's beautiful people. And so that is has shaped, how I feel about things, how I think about resolutions. And I am a firm believer of bringing everybody to the table so that every voice counts, and that diversity is what's going to bring strength, just like it did to the United States. It was the diversity that built this country, and so that's what I believe in. Definitely, every voice counts.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. With my background being in the military, traveling the world, I love encountering new cultures, learning from them. I've always believed as a young man that over 90% of everything we do is the same. It's just a little 10% or less that separate us from different cultures. And that's the part I've always been interested in, to try to learn and educate myself. I enjoyed traveling the world. I miss traveling overseas. Whether I flew over there or I had to take the ship, but I still miss those experiences. I would like to thank you for coming to the show.
Well, thank you.
And if there's anything else you'd like to say to the audience, you can look into the camera and let them know, hey, you're the new council member, and these are the things and ideas you might be planning to bring to the council.
Okay, well, I am the new councilwoman. I am excited to be able to serve in this capacity. As I mentioned before, I believe that equity and inclusion is very important on all levels, both in the departments with the city as well as the businesses that are being conducted or having an opportunity to be a part of the growth in Grand Prairie, and just the diversity of and equity and bringing everybody to the table. Just as we want Grand Prairie to grow and flourish, we do want to bring in businesses and families that are able to do the same.
Well said, Councilmember Bessie Adams. Thank you. And thank you guys for taking your time to look at another episode of On the Square with Councilmember Kurt Johnson. Until next time, take care and be safe.